Greetings, I'm Miles, from nowhere. Just back from the World's Fair in Middlemarch with many stories to tell. Come on in, sit down. The first of my tales is Which Witch is Which. By this, I don't just mean the fibers they dye and spin that will become the magical yarns they knit into enchanted garments. I mean their stories. Where did all these witches come from? Back in the day, and for the purposes of this first book of the Potluck Yarn trilogy, the day means when the witches were young girls, more than 20 years ago. Dye Mistress Aubergine, known to some as the Potluck Queen, opened a school for girls at her fiber cooperative called Potluck Yarn. Many came to apprentice, but few were chosen. The first witch was Aubergine herself, who learned all on her own to wield the magic crystals freely. The next witch was her lifelong friend, Mamie Verde, older than them all, but forever young. Thus the name Verde, which means green. She was the keeper of the tales. To run the household, which included the dormitory and kitchen, they chose Housemother Lilac Lily, the only witch among them able to win the girls' confidence and discern their untold secrets. Finally, there was Tracery Teal, whose lineage stretched back to the first folk. Teal was a witch who could be killed, but never fully destroyed. These 4 adults chose 7 apprentice girls. I say 7, for Smokey Joe was already there when the others began to gather. The smallest of the 12, Smokey Joe, was born a gnome, and left on Aubergine's doorstep by a band of traveling gypsies. Gnome babies were considered rare and magical beings, and where better to have such a child fostered, the gypsies reasoned, than the enchanted world of the Potluck Yarn Queen herself. Smokey Joe's real name was Josephine, but she earned the nickname Smokey Joe as a young child for her pyromaniac tendencies. One time, by accident, she burnt her eyebrows and singed the hair off her head. 4 weeks she walked around wearing a white cotton toque and smelling of smoke. Forever after, she was called Smokey Joe. Many arrived, but only few were chosen. Just 7. Sierra, Indigo Rose, Esmeralda, Lavender May, Winter Wheat, Rata, and Tasman. Sierra was a Northland girl sent south by her family to learn Aubergine's lore. Her parents hoped that one day she would follow Aubergine's footsteps to assume the mantle of Potluck Queen. Many Northlanders felt their children held unrealized magic inside them, remnants left over from ancient times. Sierra was one such girl. Indigo Rose was born in the bucolic Middlelands and was sent north from her family farm in Bainbridge to apprentice at the Potluck, for the farm had too few sons, but plenty of girls. Her specialty was gardening rare and exotic medicinal herbs. At the Potluck, she found she could make any plant grow, even out of season. Esmeralda grew up with carnies that ran a traveling sideshow, which featured fantastical puppets, simple sleight of hand magic tricks, and a faith healer who hawked homemade remedies. Esmeralda found she had a penchant for producing magical medicines and ran away from the carnies one day in Bordertown to begin selling her own cure-alls. When her luck ran out, she found herself at Potluck Yarn. Lavender May was a strange little girl with wispy hair who was born in a mining camp at the Crystal Lakes. Even at an early age, she knew her crystals and spent her time picking odd shards from the freshets that pooled each spring, leading from the Northland Glacier to the Teardrop Dam. After her mother died of an unknown sickness, her father moved on. Luckily, some of the women at the camp, feeling sorry for the abandoned girl and recognizing something rare in her, took her to Potluck Yarn. Winter Wheat was a big brazen girl who hailed from the Western Highlands. She never cared for womanly pursuits, preferring to learn the lore of the shepherds who passed through her father's grasslands each season. When her family found that she could not only communicate with all animals, but ken their nature, they hired one of the shepherds to take her to Potluck Yarn. Rata was born a serving wench in Coventry. She lived with her mother and sister in a hired man's cabin in the woods behind Mamie Verde's family estate. Rata enjoyed her kitchen work and keeping the old woman company. When Aubergine summoned Mamie to Potluck Yarn, it was only natural for Rata to be the servant chosen to accompany her. Tasman was a tall, slender girl with black hair and cold green eyes from the fisheries of the Far East. Her mother's family netted shrimp and sold them along the docks. Her father was a wandering glacier-born head clansman who took her mother back to the glacier lands hoping for sons. Born a daughter, Tasman had a vestige of old magic simmering inside her, and found herself an apprentice at Potluck Yarn. That is all for now. I must be on my way. But have no fear, I will be back with many stories of travels to come.